Hello, everybody. My name is Sierra Cassells, and today I'm going to walk you through my Serving Through Leadership project that I completed recently at my church. So the first part of this project was choosing where to serve. So I attend a Faith Methodist in Richmond, Texas, and so I already knew that that was probably going to be the first place I was going to go to see if there was any help needed. And so I did learn that my church needed more volunteers to help set up for VBS, which is Vacation Bible School. They do it every summer. It's actually really common for churches to do. I'm sure a lot of you have probably volunteered there and you're familiar with that. And so that was something that they needed help with. And so that is something I went and did. The opportunity was able to reflect my belief that service is an expression of faith and that you can love God by loving and serving your neighbor, which is the main thing that he called us to do. And so the reason I chose this project was because I do have a personal connection to the church. My wife and I moved here a couple years ago and we started attending this church. And since then, we've made a lot of friends at the church. And Pastor Leo was one of our first connections there. And since we started attending, he's been someone that we can always reach out to, and he knows that he can reach out to us if the church ever has anything that they need. And so it was kind of a perfect opportunity, and the connection I had to the church made it easier to get that. So my day, I kind of broke it up into four different stages. So the first hour was arrival and setup. So I checked in with the team that was there that day. We received our instructions and the different tasks that we were going to be asked to do that day. And so we started preparing the space and grabbing whatever supplies, materials, equipment we needed to complete those things. The second to the third to the fourth hour, I was there for about 4 hours on that Sunday, was all the hands-on part of it. So that carried out the main work of setting up outdoor signs, decorating walls, cutting tablecloths for jungle decor since they have like a jungle theme this year, and just assisting in whatever other places that there was a need for. Serving people directly the whole time. So I worked alongside and served Leo, who's the pastor I mentioned earlier. And then Angel, she leads children's ministry at the church. And so VBS was kind of her main project for this year. And then just anyone else there who was in any sort of position where they were leading a room or they had a classroom that they were going to be part of and they wanted it to be set up a certain way, I made sure that I went and assisted them as well. And then the last hour, we cleaned, restored the space. I thanked everybody for giving me the opportunity to serve with them, and then just gave myself a moment to kind of reflect on what the experience meant. So, meeting Greenleaf's best test, so he had this quote and he asked, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more like themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in society? And so when I evaluate those different questions he had against the service I performed, I do think that the people that I served and served with did feel seen, welcomed, and supported, hopefully. The service that I performed did meet a real need, and it was able to hopefully relieve the burden of the church staff and the other volunteers, and I was able to take something off of their plate. I think that when you serve, that you should have a certain attitude about it. It should be serving out of joy, not serving out of any sort of obligation. And so by serving joyfully alongside others, I helped to model service that invites people to give in return. And then the work directly benefited, obviously, Angel as she leads the children's ministry, Leo, the pastor, the children who were attending it, and then all of the other volunteers and church staff who are involved with VBS and just kind of ensuring that everyone got the help that they needed and that no one was overlooked or too overwhelmed. So these are some of the servant leadership skills that I tried to implement while I was serving. So number one was listening. So just paying attention to the different needs and instructions that I heard about and that were being given. Using empathy in my interactions. So meeting others with warmth and understanding in order to build trust so that we are a team who has trust when we're serving together. Persuasion. So trying to encourage others to serve and do things, not really bossing anybody around or just being too direct. Stewardship, treating the church's space and resources with care and responsibility. Commitment to growth, looking for ways to help teammates and those who served just to leave better than they came. So above the tasks that we were given, just kind of checking in with everybody on a personal level. And then building community. So just working to include everybody in order to strengthen the fellowship of the church and really centering in around that task to kind of build relationships. So as I was serving, I was able to kind of reflect on some areas for growth for myself that I observed. And one of the big things I saw was foresight and planning is an area I could definitely improve on. And what I mean by that is, I think when I got there, I noticed that like immediately I was just looking for someone to start telling me what to do instead of taking a moment to kind of slow down and just like observe and think, okay, well, that person looks like they need something. So instead of just kind of walking around and like naturally finding something to do, I was just kind of waiting for someone to just like give me a list so I could start knocking things out. So I could have been a little bit more prepared, to be more proactive instead of just reacting to things in the moment. And then I think another thing, I was pretty independent the whole time. I don't think I really worked with anybody on one project, whereas there might have been a couple other spaces or classrooms that had a couple people in there at the same time. So that sharing the leadership, just inviting others into my tasks and trying to delegate those rather than trying to carry everything myself. And then that kind of goes into my next one, dovetails. It's patience and presence. So slowing down to be fully present with each person and valuing the time that I have with these people and the service that we're performing over just getting the job done quickly. So now that we've examined Greenleaf's best test, we'll talk about Lewis's Christian philanthropy and the four W's that he talks about. And so his four W's, centrally, the meaning of that is just kind of like you don't have to donate money to make an impact. Like your money doesn't, that's not all you can give. Like you can give your time, you can give your effort, you can give your knowledge and all of these different things. Like that means more than your money ever will, like writing a check. And so when we look at the four W's against service I perform, so number one is wealth. So I think I use my personal resource as my time in order to go and support the group and the team and the staff to set up for Vacation Bible School. The work, I put forth a lot of effort and I worked diligently to get everything set up and organized, make sure all the classrooms had what they needed for them. And that demonstrated dedication and effort towards service. And then wisdom, just trying to apply biblical principles of what it means to be like an inviting Christian and somebody who makes a space feel welcome and meaningful, and just making sure that VBS was going to be impactful for the kids in the community. And then his last W, which is witness, I think I did share God's love through service because I was able to demonstrate faith in action. So then my values, beliefs, and significant takeaways. So this really aligned with my values for love, service, humility, and dignity for every person. Those beliefs shaped how I led. So serving others first, listening, and putting others' needs above my own. And then my key takeaway from this, is that leadership is measured by who I serve. And so that is kind of something that will stick with you forever. And I think it really is very telling. And it's something that we should all kind of make sure that we're shedding light on every now and then really taking into thought. And so just kind of to wrap up here, these are some moments of service. So these were some photographs that I took during the service project. This doesn't capture everything that I did, but my phone was on like 1% by the time I got to church because I came in from out of town. And so I was only able to capture like one picture of a couple things. So the first picture on the left is the Kingdom Quest sign for VBS. So it was like a jungle theme, but it's also Kingdom Quest, which is, I guess they're trying to relate it sort of to Fortnite because that's what a lot of the kids are into. And so you have like a bunch of challenges and different games and stuff like that. So I set up that signage outside so that when the parents come to drop off their kids, they know that it's these doors to the church. So they can kind of get excited, see where they're going, all of that. The middle picture is a wall that I decorated for a classroom. So those flowers were made out of a bunch of paper plates, different colors. Some of them were painted and then they were just kind of stapled together to form the flower pattern. So I just taped those up on the wall. And then the last picture, as I mentioned earlier, they are going for like a jungle theme this year for VBS. And so those were all like super thin plastic tablecloths that I spent the bulk of my time cutting up in a bunch of different shapes and patterns so that they can go into the classroom and hang it for the kids. So my key takeaways are basically four of them. Number one, servant leadership begins with the choice to serve. Number two, small, faithful acts of service create real growth in others. Number three, the Christian philanthropy is time and talent given in person, not just money. And then I felt like I do leave projects like this changed and more ready to serve again. And then I've added in one more quote from Greenleaf saying that the servant leader is servant first. And I think that kind of captures the overall and central point of the entire project. So those are my references. Thank you for joining in, and I really had a great time doing this project. Thank you so much.